Good morning, everyone. I'll just give 1 minute just so everyone can join in and fall in. We're excited to have so many entrepreneurs and founders joining us this morning. It's going to be a jam-packed morning in this virtual conference. We're super excited to have all of you guys here. This is the very first Scale-Up Con that OCFO is hosting. We're super excited about what lies ahead, and we've got a really good lineup for you guys. Just giving it a last second so our people can all join in. We should have a good couple of dozen business owners from different corners of the world all joining in today to listen to some of the kind of expert panelists and keynote speakers talk about their journeys and experience shares in the world of building scale-up companies. Great to see the numbers are ticking up. Cool, guys. So, yeah, I think while everyone comes in, I just want to start us off with just the thought that, I think 2020 has been probably the most unusual business year that many of us have ever faced, and probably that some of us will ever face. We hope for that. It's really changed the game in terms of how business is done. And I think as business owners and as entrepreneurs, there's a lot of kind of a rethink that needs to be done in this time. So we decided we want to host Scale-Up Con in this time where 2020 has actually been a year that's been about scaling down, right? A lot of companies have lost a big portion of their revenue. A lot of guys have taken knocks. Some industries were really wrecked within the last 6 months. But we thought, coming out of this crisis, as coronavirus numbers are starting to go down, and as companies and the economy starts firing up again, it's super important to go back to basics and to make sure that we have the core principles that are the age-old wisdoms in terms of building good companies intact, but also the learnings from the last 6 months and how the game of doing business has changed. And then we can take all of that and put it together into strategies and into plans that can take our businesses into the future. So today we really want to share some of our insights. We've gotten some really incredible people that are joining us from all parts of the world. The speaker panel today consists of founders and entrepreneurs that you guys will read about in a lot of the headlines around the world. We're super stoked to have probably well over 100 years worth of scaling up experience on the panel and on the keynote speakers lineup here today. So I just want to kind of talk about scale-up methodology. I assume most people on this virtual conference today are veterans or are in their journey of scaling up their company already. If scale-up methodology is something new, I just want to kind of unpack it a little bit. So there's a bunch of principles and an approach that has been put together in terms of how can one best grow a successful company that keeps 10xing over a couple of years, that keeps moving forward, that keeps creating growth, and that drives industry-leading profitability and cash flow. And there are a couple of key barriers that have been identified in that process. One of the first one is the lack of leadership, the inability of a company to train up and attract enough leaders to move their business forward into the future. Another one has been the ability to market in an out of the box way that attracts not just the customers the company needs, but also the personnel, the leadership team, the investors, the partners that can drive that business into the future. And the last one is the lack of scalable infrastructure to help a company hurdle that next level of growth as it moves forward. And scale-up methodology then identifies 4 pillars of a company on which the management team and the founders can work to help that company grow and scale. And we've kind of broken up the day in terms of that. So the first part is strategy, like how do you think about strategy from core principles as well as in the new normal? How do you build a strategy for your company that can take it into the future? The next one is people. People are the most important element of the company. The people are the heartbeat of the business. So how do you manage people in this new remote environment and going into the future? Like what are the age-old wisdoms and what are the kind of new principles in this new world of remote work? We'll then go into operations and execution, which is like the clockwork of the company, like how to make the business tick over day after day, week after week, month after month, and keep it on that scaling track without the wheels coming off. And then lastly is cash. So finance, how do you kind of get enough cash to fuel growth within the company and enable it to move forward. So yeah, just from my side, we're really excited to have you guys with us today. We're gonna spend the next 2.5 hours together. So I want to invite you to pull that coffee closer, or grab your breakfast, relax, and really focus. I think if you take in some of the nuggets that are shared here today, it can definitely help you on your journey for the rest of 2020 and beyond. We've got a lot of experts who've been condensing their thoughts and their experience into 10-minute little keynotes, as well as 20-minute panel discussions. So it's really going to be power content. It's going to move quite fast. So we want to give you guys as much value as we can in a shorter space of time as possible. We thought 2.5 hours would probably be the max that anyone can stay focused on Zoom. We will have a coffee break a little bit after 10, just to make it a bit more relaxed and give you guys that caffeine kick needed after the first couple of sessions. But yeah, all together from my side, from the Outsource CFO team side, you were really stoked to have all of you guys here. And just kind of starting out, just want to say a big word of thanks to all of our speakers and all of our panelists who are taking time out of growing their companies to be here with us today, to share their insights, to share their experiences with us, and to help us think about how can we move our business forward in 2020 and absolutely beyond. So that's it from me. I wanted to just make everyone feel at home and give you some context in terms of what lies ahead today. I hope everyone is fired up and excited. I know I am. And then without further ado, then I think I'll hand over to our first speaker. So maybe just before I put Donnie on, another quick look. Let me just pull the agenda up again. Let me just quickly show you guys what we're going to be, how it's going to fit together. So we've just finished our intro. After that, we'll go to our first couple of keynotes. Donnie Nell is going to lead us in telling us his story with scaling up his business over the last kind of quarter of a century and all the lessons he's learned. And then after that, Donna will dive into strategy for the new normal. Donna Pretorius is one of the co-founders at Outsource CFO. Excited to hear about that. And then Yvonne Wakefield from Caveat Legal will share with us, her strategy and how she kind of managed to get her legal firm so far ahead of the curve when this crisis hit. After that, we're going to move to our first panel discussion. That will be on people. So we've got Helene Smith and John O'Harris that will both be chatting about on people panel. I'll be interviewing the guys just to get a feel for it. For their thoughts and their learnings in kind of coaching up teams and instilling great company cultures. We're going to do a break then, and after the break, we're going to hear from one of our corporate partners. Investec is going to be online. Setlhwane Manchidi, Donna will be interviewing him to just kind of get their thought in terms of corporate's role in the entrepreneurship community in South Africa. After which we'll go to execution, where Wilhelm Walser, our COO, will be talking through some of the key elements of a great operational and execution function in the company. And then there will be a panel discussion with Leanne and Skulk about like how to make that business tick over like clockwork. We'll hear one last keynote from Mike Scott, who's going to be sharing his personal journey of scaling up, as well as what are the things that you as an individual, as an entrepreneur, but also as a human being, need to consider in your journey as you scale up. Like, how do you manage yourself throughout that process? And then there will be one last final panel discussion where some of our chartered accountant professionals will be speaking about just kind of like the cash and finance function of a scale-up company. So that's basically what we've got lined up for you guys all the way through to about 11:30. We'll see how the day goes with the timelines, but we'll make sure to get you guys that coffee break and that spot in that kind of like that hard finish by 11:30 to get to the rest of your days. But then it's 10 past. I'm gonna hand over to Donnie now. Donnie, are you online with us? Can I call you up to put your screen on? There we go.
Yes, so, I'm here. Morning, everybody.
Donnie, it's so good to have you guys. We're really privileged to start our day off with Donnie now. He's one of the global coaches for Entrepreneur Organization. He teaches accelerator groups all over the world. And he's really spent the last almost 25 years on growing his own group called Nebula, with a lot of different exciting companies within that group, into an absolute powerhouse. And listening to him speak at some of the coaching sessions previously has really opened my eyes in terms of how to run our company. So I think we're in exceptional hands, Donnie. We're so excited to hear you kind of to share your journey with us, to kick us off on this this great day of learning about scaling up. The floor is all yours.
Thank you. Let me just see my screen here. Yeah, thank you, Lo. It's always interesting just reflecting back on where you started and where you are right now. So I'm just going to take you quickly on a journey, some of my thinking about this, and Lo's covering those 4 areas with you, but I'll just combine just a couple of thoughts from my side for everybody. So I'm going to go into presentation mode. So let me just do that, and that everybody can see that. Lo, are you okay with this? Is that good like this?
That's perfect. Thank you, Donnie.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So scaling up for me is that always think about what picture comes to mind, and the interesting part was if you give somebody your objective and you can do that goal that you've got on your own, then you don't thinking big enough. So one of the key fundamental things for me I've taken away is that you always have to have something bigger than what you can do on your own. And so just quickly about my story from my side. I've also got the scars. I crashed my first business in 1990. The interesting part about that was when you finish your MBA, you think you're so smart, and you're actually a complete twit. You don't know anything about what you're doing. So my apologies if I offend anybody that's done an MBA. I've done one, but I actually feel it's sometimes so overrated. So that was a big course for me. So that was a fundamental piece that actually changed the way I think about business, is what happened with me. So in 1990, we were 4 people that started the company. We only know how to write business plans. We don't know how to run business. So we wrote the business plan and we got money. And we started the business. And after 6 months, we had to close it because we knew nothing. And for 4 years in my life, I had to go with my payslip every month to this company where we borrowed money to ask them not to take my car, not to take my house. I went through that process of feeling not like a human. And that has changed a lot of my thinking around cash and how I run businesses today. And I'm so glad it happened with me. And now I can really share the fruits of that. So my businesses at the moment, I've founded 6 businesses. It's 85 people and it's growing at the moment. So we're busy employing more people. It's limited to 50. And I'll share with you now the story around the 100 to 50. The oldest business is 23 years old. We still self-funded. We don't have debt. We don't even have an overdraft. So how did we do that? We actually come up with something called the 15 levers, or how we create growth and scaling in your business with it. And this is a well-oiled machine now, and we know how we switch it on and off, and how we drive it. So recently also we've opened our companies in the US, USA, UK, and West Europe, and we're on a big drive of scaling our business now outside South Africa on a global front on the back of Microsoft. So there's the companies that we've got. So Nebula is the biggest one, and you must have seen some of these companies before. So the question always when you talk about somebody's story is, what is your story? So sometimes when I saw this picture, I think it's always a flow that is happening. And there's some greenery, and there's some dark areas, and there's some not so green areas. But each one of us has got a story to tell. And I want to take you back to my story, is the foundation. What was the foundation? There's always something that you need to start with before you can scale. And I always believe if you have a strong foundation, there's things that you put on top of that will make you strong. But how strong is that foundation? So I love this picture I'm sharing with you guys today about the foundation of a tree trunk, how that has grown and with the roots in that. So the part I want to share with you are these couple of points, and I call it foundation 1. So it actually starts with you as the person. Who are you? Are you a solid person? What is your thinking of your foundation as a person? Because that is where you are. You are brick number one in the foundation. The second point for me here is a very key point that I just would like to, and in my belief and in my experience, has been fundamental. That is that you have to have a higher purpose in life than making money. And that is also fundamentally important in running a company, is that there must be a higher purpose than making money. Because you can find much easier ways of making money. Yeah. So higher purpose of making money. And that ties a lot to this book that I wrote there in the bottom for you, Visionary Business. So this is a very, very interesting book. So that was the book I actually read before I started reading Scaling Up from Vern Harnish. So we recommend for you to maybe just to read through that. He came up with 25 points, which is really fundamental. And that was one of the points I took away from that, is having a higher purpose and making money. The third one for me is also coming back to what is your guiding principles for you, how you run businesses. So like a mantra. For me, one of my guiding principles always, I'll start the business. I try to avoid partners in the beginning. So I will start the business, I get it going, and then I bring in partners. And then also guiding principle, what is your monetary value? Do you give sweat equity or so one of the things with that is it's so important. In my world, I put the principle there is that we'll pay money. Even if you pay R1 or $1, it's to get the mechanism in place of it's a fair exchange for what it means, because you can't argue with it. And then, as I mentioned to you, is that you are brick number one in a foundation. You must be focused. You must know where you're going. You must be a good leader. You must have principles. You must have strong values, how you will run your business. Now, that has been my hallmark over this 23, 24 years of my life. And because eventually, as brick number one, it's you are the culture of the business, and that makes sure it can take punctures. The second part for me was in terms of scaling business is the following one, is that scaling equals people. So a lot of people think about scaling equals cash. Yes, that's also true. But the fundamental piece is that you can't scale a business without people. But you can also have to make sure that you have the right model how to do this, because as a person, you as one person can only do X. So to get an X factor, you use technology, people, but there's always a people component to that. The second fundamental part is that the growth of the business doesn't really equal sales. It actually equals growing leaders. How do you grow the people in your business so that they can grow sales for you, so that they can make your world feel better and motivate and give you their time and capability? I know Eileen will talk to you more about people side, but that's the fundamental part with this. So I want to share this quote with you as well. And that's resonated with me yesterday morning when I read through this again. It says, your title makes you a manager. Your people make you a leader. So that is why in my world and my experience is that the foundation, you brick number one, because that will make sure how strong it is for all the things you're going to build on top of that. So just in my world, in terms of scaling best practice, a couple of pointers to share with you here. In my world was, and the team that I've dealt with on the training side. Now I always talk about the triangle. So I want to start with a triangle with you today as well. So always think about scaling your business after you're looking at the people side. Is this triangle? You have to have growth and you have to have profit. You see the bottom? That generates cash. Without the perfect triangle or a small triangle going to a big triangle, you're not going to scale your business. So that's fundamentally so important. Then you must also know exactly why. What is the purpose of the business? So I started off to say, you start with yourself. You must have a higher purpose than making money. This is similar to in a business. You need to bring this back into this as well, that you need to have a higher purpose than doing that. What in the world are you going to change? Because when things go tough, like COVID, you must still be able to focus on that. We talk sometimes about the BHAG, your big, hairy, audacious goal. That is something that when somebody sees that, they must go, oh, they must lose their breath. And that has been one of our big hallmarks. That is the way we hire people. When people see how attractive that is, and it comes to join you. I'll talk about that just now. Then vision. Vision keeps on changing. So vision is not just something that's always stationary, but you have a vision to say, I want to be like this. And you're welcome to change again, but it's so important to have that, and that normally ties back into your BHAG as well. Then the fourth point there is, what is your engine? How's the engine going to work if you're going to make money? Are you going to, it's very important really to think about that you have kind of different revenue streams, how you make it up. The key drive for us in our business, we started off many years ago by selling time. So one person's got 100 hours a month that you can sell, and that is the capacity you have. You need to think about how do you actually calculate that. So for us, we had 5 people in the business. Then we said, oh my goodness, well, now 5 people, 10 people. We need to have a recipe how to bake this cake, because each one might bake a different cake. We have to make quality. So we come up with a recipe, and that recipe became our methodology. And then we said, oh my goodness, we need to rethink about this recipe. We need to automate some of these recipes now. And then we start building this a bit in an online fashion. And this is how we built where we are right now today. Today we're fully flat SaaS business. We've become a tech business of really starting off by just selling hours to be a fully tech business now that can run anywhere in the world. But it took time. It took 23 years. It took 23 years of really thinking and never give up, and the people focus of that makes a difference for you. So here's our BHAG. So this is what we're aiming for, is to be $1 billion self-funded business, complementary business that's co-invented, co-created by 150 co-owners. Now this has become my biggest draw card to hire new people, because my staff has each one got a number in the business. You're number 1. I'm number 1. So I can't give that away. So we always say when we hire somebody, you're number 85. When somebody leaves, you'll move up the chain. So that's always for us a big hiring thing. But let me tell you another story here. 150. Anybody know the story about 150? There's the Dunbar number for the Professor Dunbar from Oxford University that done some research here that you can have only 150 meaningful relationships. And that's why I put the number there to say, right, I want to do the impossible, but the closeness of the people is about 150. And I linked that to the Dunbar number. And you can also see there that we talk about self-funded. We want to see that we can actually scale the business as what we've done now on a global front through the self-funded model. So this is the part that keeps us excited and focused. So just to repeat again for you here, is that this gives us that part where you go, oh, this is exciting. So when we talk and bring somebody new in a business, when they see this, oh, they want to be part of this. Some more stuff for you to share. So one of the key parts in scaling your business is that really think about that you need to have a good growth hurdle rate. If you only grow at 5%, your business is dead. If you grow at 8% to 10%, you're sort of okay-ish, not 100%. But to be a proper business, you need to grow at the minimum of 20% per year. Not growing too fast, but solid, consistent growth like the 20-mile march. But it's also important for you to forward think about your business, how you want to scale this. And that's what I call the inflection points. So something I was sometimes ignored previously, but the inflection points are when you have to make a jump to the next level. So you can see in here, I've shared with you some inflection points on the graph here to say, right, At this point, you grow at 20%, you have an inflection point. You continue at 20% growth, you have an inflection point. So there's an interesting book also written about here, the $1 Billion Blueprint. And in the book, they also talk about inflection points. So what are those points in your business plan, in your scaling up process, where you're going to get that bump? And our world was every time when we change the business model from a people side and we have a new recipe, or we build software, we got a new client or a new territory. So we design it for that so that we can have an inflection point to do the scaling. Then lastly, our big part for this has been something you can see in SpaceX. So this is one of our fundamental principles that we use to scale our companies and our group of businesses. And if you think about SpaceX, what have they solved of first principles? The biggest cost of a rocket going to space is to leave Earth. And that has always been the biggest cost. So in our world, for us, the biggest cost of starting a company is always the rocket or getting up into space. So we've started in our scaling of our companies, utilizing our big business to launch new businesses in space. So that has been our rocket. So we've really made sure that is solid. And that goes to the last point there. So I'm saying, although some of your new business might grow well, never compromise your proper foundation dam. That always must be solid. Because if that goes empty and your smaller dams sucks all the water out of it, your rocket is still not going to fly. The second point that we use is something called reusable logic. We always ask the question, what if we built already that we can reuse? And there's various ways of how you can think about that in your world, but this has been one of our scalable parts in our business to say, right, let's don't reinvent the wheel, let's make it smarter. But we found an interesting way how to do that. And then the last part is really the complementary side for us, how we bring these businesses together on that world. So this is just my way of just sharing with you. So the ultimate question to you is, how did you impact? And for me, it's about scaling businesses, but it's actually about scaling people. So for me, that has been the most important part in this. So Lo, that's my story. So you guys are welcome to ask me questions. So just a few points there.
Sure, Donnie, I've got goosebumps on this side. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. That's really, really amazing. If you're okay with it, would it be right if we share your contact details with the group? If anyone has a question, then directly for Donnie, then we can push that through. Just for the sake of our content plan, I just want to be able to hand over to Donna. But Donnie, thank you so much. That's really insightful. Thank you for sharing your journey with us. It's super powerful. And for us in the first half of our journeys, I think it's really aspirational to see what you've done with your group and how you're still learning and thinking. We absolutely love it.
All right. Thank you, Lo. All the best to you guys for today.
Thanks a lot. Great to have you. Appreciate it. Donna, over to your side, my friend. It's time for strategy. We're going to hand over to Donna Pretorius, who's one of the co-founders at Outsource CFO and also one of the top 35 chartered accountants under 35 for this 2020 year. Donna.
Thank you so much, Lo. Everyone, I'm so excited to talk to you today about strategy in the business of new normal. I'm going to make it simple today, starting with the end in mind. I'm only going to focus on 3 steps for you to approach your strategy. The first step, we're going to look a little bit on the good old-fashioned SWOT analysis tool. The second step, we're going to look at how to forecast your future, especially if there's unknowns in the variables. And then the third last step, we're going to bring it all together with a 1-page strategic plan, which we call a 90-day plan for your team of executives to execute on. So starting off with strategy, you might ask, why must you as a business owner focus on the strategy of your business? You might have a backlog of operational work to do. When's the best time to look at your strategy? You don't really have time for it. Now, I'm here to tell you that it's so important for you to look at your business strategy, especially now with the new normal. Your playbook that you have been using might not be that relevant anymore. The assumptions that you used to sustain your business might have changed. So it's so crucial for you to look at the strategy of your business to take you into the future. What got you here won't get you there necessarily. So that's where we move to the first step of approaching your strategy, is the good old-fashioned SWOT analysis tool. So SWOT, it stands for really analyzing your strengths, your weaknesses in your business, the opportunities that there's in your industry, the threats, as well as the trends in your industry. So to give you a little bit of example on changes that might happen, for instance, there might be trend changes. What we're seeing is there's a lot more focus on going digital. Your trends, your customer buying patterns might have changed. Opportunities, there might be more global opportunities with everyone going more digital. Threats, there might be a little bit more threats in your industry. So a SWOT analysis tool, sit with your board of executives, put the time aside, look at the SWOT tools, and it will just really help you to be agile and almost approach your business as if you're a startup and really look at what's opportunities in your business. That brings me to my second step of approaching your strategy. Sometimes it's so difficult to navigate the future and to look at your future strategy because there's so many unknown variables. And that's where I like the 7 habits of highly effective people. One of the habits of being proactive instead of reactive. And I want to challenge you as business owners to also be proactive with your strategy approach. And that's where the second approach is very helps a lot, and that's the capability of trying and sketching out different futures. So there might be 3 or more different futures that could happen or turn out for your business. And what Donnie now also mentions, you want to scale your business, and if you're looking at the 20% year-on-year annual growth or even more, you need to almost look at these different futures. So remember, plotting out your different futures, you do want to sustain your core mission. It's important that your core mission is intact, but different ways of operating your business might change. So I want to challenge you when forecasting different futures. There might be different sales forecasts, different ways of how your business could pan out. It might be that some debtors might struggle to pay during this time. You're re-looking at your cash flow runway, different scenarios of how it could change, etc. And just by panning out and forecasting these different futures will give you almost like assist you to be more proactive, to help you to make informed decisions a lot earlier than necessary, being reactive and waiting for the reality to kick in and then just be a byproduct of your circumstances. So really a great skill set to be able to stretch and forecast different futures and to help you to make informed business decisions beforehand. We obviously make use of some amazing softwares and tools to help our clients with forecasting different scenarios and futures for their business, for them to really look at their cash flow runway. So you've now focused on the first 2 steps of approaching your strategy. You've looked at it from a more broader side. Now it's important to bring it all together to a 1-page strategic plan, which we call a 90-day plan. Which is a very valuable document. So growth in your business and scaling of your business is super important, that everyone in the executive team and everyone in your company buys into the strategic 1-page plan to take your business forward. So what is this 1-page a 90-day plan? It's basically a 1-page documents that focus on the 6 pillars of your business, being client acquisitions and sales, marketing strategy, your product offering, your people, your finance, and your operations. So if you can look at those 6 different pillars of your business in the 90-day plan, what you want to do is you want to focus on first, what do you want out of each of these pillars of your business? then ask yourself why it is important for your business, and then almost have actionable plans of how will I get there. For instance, I'm going to use client acquisitions as a scenario. So client acquisitions, what you want to have more ideal clients. Why is it important for your business to have more ideal clients? Non-ideal clients might take a lot more energy and resources in servicing them or getting them onboarded. So then moving on to action points, how will I get there? How will I boost this client acquisitions and sales? I think it's important to stand still and firstly understanding your ideal client, and then carving out action points of how to get more ideal clients. It might be a sales outbound strategy, or even working closer with your network partners for asking for referrals, for getting that ideal client. So that's just one example of how you would typically drill down then further into your 90-day plan. For finance, for instance, one of the also key pillars for you as a business, it might be for you important to know, have visibility on your cash flow runway, or where your money is going, or have visibility on your spending as a business. And not a lot of business owners have their finger on the pulse on their operations and their businesses. So actionable steps there might be to relook and rethink the world-class financial function that they're currently using, and thinking of some automations of certain, bring in technology that will bring these dashboards alive, that can give owners visibility on their cash flow and their performance to help them to make more improved business decisions. So lastly, this 90-day plan, remember, a one-page plan for your and your executive to focus on. What happens a lot is business owners overestimate what they can do in a month, and they underestimate what they can do in a quarter. So that's why we look at it a 90-day plan. Remember, you can bring, you can hold different board and executive members accountable for extreme ownership for the different pillars. In the end, all of the execs need to take extreme ownership for all of these items, keep them accountable, check in with them frequently. And yeah, so this is an amazing tool to use for you as an executive team to strategically implement items in your business that will take your business forward. That is, in summary, the 3 items for you to approach your strategy in your business.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you, Donna. That's really insightful. Thank you for sharing your practical experience in driving strategy. Really good to hear some of those insights and to hear about the practical tools that business owners can use to build that strategy for the next quarter sprint. Thanks for that. Great. Our next keynote is Yvonne Wakefield. Yvonne, you can jump on now if you like. We're so excited to have Yvonne here. She's one of our absolute favorite long-term partners that we've been working with for a good while. Yvonne is the founder of Caveat Legal. It's one of the most forward-thinking legal firms in the world. And yeah, she's going to be sharing how she managed to be basically a decade ahead of her industry in terms of strategy when this new normal hit us. Yvonne, we're excited to learn from you and to hear what thoughts you have for us today. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Lo, and thanks to all of you. Nice to see you all. I'm going to work on the basis that you can all hear me and see me. Somebody stop me if there's something wrong. So I've been asked to speak to you today about strategy, and specifically the innovation in our business model that has put us so far ahead of our industry. Caveat, the business that I run, is effectively a law firm. Nothing sexy about that. So why would we be asked to speak about strategy and innovation? Basically, because we're not only perfectly placed for today's business environment, but we have also had absolutely zero negative impact from COVID. In fact, we're seeing absolutely unprecedented growth of over 65% on last year. So let's take a few steps back. Caveat is a panel of about 55 former big firm lawyers, grown up in the big firms, who are now working independently on our panel, and who consult to businesses, corporates, and other law firms. We do all types of commercial legal work, so anything that's contractual, and we work primarily within the M&A space. So we deal with investors buying into businesses, selling businesses, founders getting and taking investors on board, and that kind of thing. Next year we'll turn 10. So we are different in two significant aspects. The first is that we're completely virtual. We don't have, and we have never had, central offices. And secondly, even though the business is quite big, we have basically no employees. We have one employee, and you're looking at her. So how did we get here? And what does it have to do with strategy, and what about that is relevant to you? Let's take a few steps back. Back in the day in designing the business, I looked first for the problems. So looking at the legal industry, the two problems that jumped out at me, the obvious one, I think, is cost. The cost of legal services is just way too high. It makes legal services completely exclusive, only servicing extremely big businesses, and basically no private individuals can afford really good lawyers. Why are the costs so high? The costs are so high because the overheads are so high. Why are the overheads so high? Well, for two reasons that I think are the main reasons. The first is that there are a lot of people involved traditionally in the offering of legal services. You have all of your lawyers, and then you have all of the support staff. You have typists and secretaries and messengers and a whole bunch of support staff that are supporting the lawyers. All of these guys are employed on a permanent basis, which makes them a fixed cost to the business. The second major overhead, obviously, is the buildings. Whenever you drive around Sandton or you drive around Cape Town CBD, you see that the fanciest buildings around you are the law firms. Those businesses have to be paid for, and they're paid for by the clients. Traditionally, the fancy buildings were necessary to kind of instill confidence in clients. But I sort of believed that as technology was changing the world, that clients would start to realize that they're actually paying for the buildings and they don't want to pay for those buildings. And then the second big problem with the legal industry is that the lawyers are unhappy. You know, you try and do really well at school to get into law school, then you try and do really well in law school to get into the big firms, and then you go into the big firms, and before you know it, you know, you're actually chasing budgets and chasing targets for other people, and you're not actually helping people. And most people get into law because they want to help people. So you've got high overheads and you've got unhappy lawyers. Then before building anything, I asked people in business, other entrepreneurs, what the biggest headaches are that they face. And the two things that kept on rising to the surface were cash flow, just the difficulties in getting cash consistently into the business. And secondly, people, HR issues. Now, I found this quite interesting because I think a lot of entrepreneurs are genuinely kind of gregarious and they're good people. But it's that actually that makes the people side of things so hard, because when you are hiring people, you have to pay them when they're on holiday. You have to pay them when they're not working at capacity. You have to pay them during the quiet times. You have to train them. You have to performance manage them if they're not doing well. And then if you try to kind of get rid of them, there's such a long process that it's almost impossible. All of this takes time and it takes money, but more importantly, it takes energy. And it can be an absolute energy drain for any entrepreneur. So those are the two big business issues that I picked up that I thought needed to try and be sort of sidestepped and managed in relation to this new business. So then I built from the bottom up, asking how I could solve these problems in the most simple way. We need good lawyers. So we find the best lawyers available in the country, but we use them on the basis that they only work on contract for us, as and when we need them. They're only paid when they work, and they only get paid once we've been paid by the client. We need accounting and finance help. We need design and marketing help, web development and other support. And we do that on a similar basis. We don't hire people on a fixed and permanent basis to do that. We find the best people out there and we contract them to help us with their skills as and when we need them. This way, we're creating work for people, but we're not responsible for their careers and all of their income in the long term. Buildings and offices are not necessary for lawyers to do their jobs in today's world, so we don't have any, period. This way, with a focus on simplicity, we keep our responsibilities very, very light. So here, just kind of stepping out of this, I just want to speak a little bit about, choosing to go with simplicity. and just say a couple of things around simplicity. Firstly, when you're building something, there's a kind of tension between simplicity and your own ego. Why? In the past, the signs of success of a business were what your headcount is. How many people do you hire? Where are your offices? How big are your offices? How often do you travel for work? Where do you stay when you travel? All of those things were the kinds of signs that people on the outside would look at to see how successful you are. But most of this is actually strictly not necessary to getting the job done and to making money. Secondly, sometimes we feel that to be clever, something has to be complex. And that simple is nothing, means that it's nothing special and that anyone can do it. This is not true. Sometimes the cleverest things are right in front of us and they are dead simple. When you scale, your business becomes more complex. And as it becomes more complex, it becomes exponentially more difficult to scale further. So eventually the complexity of the business bogs the whole thing down. I'm not sure if you've heard of the complexity multiple, but essentially it is, it's a kind of sum that you can do that takes the number of people that you employ, the number of products or services that you offer, the number of locations that you have offices at, and you do a sum with those, and essentially the more of those moving parts you have, the higher your complexity multiple and the harder it will be for your business to scale. So the secret here is to start simple, and as you scale, to try and keep your business as simple as possible. And in that way, the complexity, the inevitable complexity, is delayed to a stage when your business is mature enough and financially sound enough to manage that complexity. In this way, we built a business model for legal services which is fit for purpose and very, very light. The innovation is actually in the business model. It's deceptively simple, but it works magnificently. Down the line, I can say that the business is growing really nicely. We reached our first strategic goals, we reset them, we reached those, we reset them again. But most importantly now in the scaling phase, we've broken our current strategy into an execution plan, which breaks our 5-year strategy into years. It breaks each year into quarters, Dana, similar to your 90-day plan. And then it breaks the quarters into months. Then it allocates tasks to different role players in the business and allows for consistent tracking and scoring against our goals. You know, your strategy can't be devised and then put into a drawer somewhere and left alone. It needs to be worked into every single aspect of the business, and then it needs to be diligently tracked against to make sure that we're going to meet each of the smaller parts that make up the bigger goal. Goals can only be met with diligent and ongoing implementation in line with strategy. Yeah, that's all from me. Good luck to all of you, and I'm available for questions.
Sure, Yvonne. Thank you so much for all of that share. I think everyone has got a lot to think about. I know my head is spinning after everything you've just said. So we'll take those notes, and when we sit for our next strategy, I think all of the founders on this session today will be drawing from your insights and figuring out what is their version of Caveat Legal for the future, because it's a really exciting model. Congratulations on what you guys have achieved in such a short space of time. We're super stoked to be working with you guys. And thanks for being here today.
Pleasure.
Great. All right, guys, we're moving over to our people management panel now. You guys would have heard in a lot of the strategy conversations now that the word people has been mentioned quite a lot. It's a key part of running a great company is working with people. So I'm going to ask Helene and Jono to join me on the panel. And then we're going to have a little chat around, how do you go about people management in a scale-up company in this day and age?
Cool. Morning. How's it, Lo? Hi, everyone.
Hey, Jono. How's it going?
Good. Hey, Leon.
Morning, guys. I hope all of you are well.
Hey, guys. Great to have you both. I'm very excited to have this caliber of people experience and company culture experience join us here today. So we're super all ears for the next little while ahead of our coffee break. The first question I want to just throw out at the both of you to, it's just basically, people management and leadership in this new world of work that's kind of predominantly remote. Is it more important now or less important than before? Eileen, would you like to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sorry, I'm smiling because it's interesting how whenever there's a massive event, then people say it's now more than ever it's important for folks to focus on leadership. It's always important, regardless of whether it's, sorry, I've got a bit of a husky voice. I suffered from hay fever. So I think especially now, like the reason why I'm saying it's always important is because people are going through some trauma. They are going through stress. They are feeling isolated. There's so many things that's going on. And whether that was COVID or not, it was a general trend that we're experiencing. And therefore it is so important that you focus on what we call situational leadership. You can't just have your blanket approach to leadership like how a lot of people have a blanket approach. You really need to zone in on the individual and start seeing how can you support different individuals with in the time that they are in. But is it now important? Yes, but it's always important.
Jono, what do you think?
You know what, Helene actually summed that up beautifully. It definitely is situational. It is very much, and it always has been important from a people and leadership perspective. I think it's obviously just some mindsets need to change at this point in time. So it's not a case of now you can't see you guys on the, sitting in their chairs and being at their desks, which we all know doesn't necessarily mean they're productive anyway. But now it is, your mindset needs to change to more of a trust mindset, that your team are going to actually be doing what they need to be doing. And it needs to, you as a leader need to start forming much more of a mentor and a coach role than, are you at your desk doing it at 9 to 5 kind of thing. So, has it changed? It shouldn't have. It has always been important, exactly as Helene has said. But yeah, no, it is definitely more important now as well, though. It's quite a weird one.
Thanks, Jono. No, thanks for getting us out of the blocks, guys. I just want to quote from kind of scale-up methodology around the key question around people. It basically asks, are all the people in the company happy and engaged? And would you enthusiastically rehire all of them? So that's quite a big question. I see Eileen is smiling there. Maybe let's break it up into kind of like the two different parts. So the first one is basically around the importance of having happy and engaged staff. Jono, you guys work primarily with people engagement in a remote environment for scale-up companies. What would you say to that?
Well, I mean, I suppose at the end of the day is anyone that's unhappy at their best, regardless of whether it's work, whether it's life. So happy staff, definitely a must. If you've got unhappy staff and you're in a fast moving, growing company, you're basically going to start, counteracting your growth by losing staff because they're unhappy, they're not working, they're not productive, and ultimately they're not growing your business. So if that's the case, that you've got unhappy people and they're leaving, you actually using your resources then to, try and source new talent instead of growing your talent and growing your business. So you definitely have to have happy staff. And studies by Gallup have found that at least 27%, people that are employees that are engaged and happy at their work are about 27% more engaged and more productive. So, unhappy people in the workplace definitely doesn't work for scaling companies, especially.
Thanks. No, I mean, I think that's a critical point. And managing happiness in this current environment where you're, someone's operating from a corner of their flat is quite a complex thing, right? Is there any kind of like practical example you can give of what a company can do to build on the happiness of its employees?
Well, I mean, first and foremost is you need to start recognizing them, and recognition, especially within a remote environment, is hugely important. It was very easy in the office to, turn around to your team member, give them a high five or a slap on the back and say, well done, that was amazing. But do we really do it, when we're busy looking at each other through screens? And if we are doing it, are we also only doing it in a one-on-one environment? I mean, it's great for my manager to say to me, you did a great job there, but it's even better for them to say, Jono did a great job at this in front of the entire team, or wow, Lo presented that and it was amazing. It gives you a great feeling that you're valued at the workplace, and you're not just working in isolation. So it really creates a recognition program that is public. and that everyone can see, so that everyone knows what everyone is also doing. I think remote work, especially for staff that aren't used to remote work, because that's the thing, we were forced into remote. And if you're not used to it, it's scary. So it's about, we have FOMO. We really have that fear of missing out on what other people are doing. So if you're recognizing publicly, it really makes a difference on knowing that someone is pulling their weight, that they are doing their work, and that everyone is engaged in what everyone's doing. You can all jump into that bandwagon.
Thanks, Jono. That's some good insights. I really love that. Then the second half of that question we spoke about is, would you enthusiastically rehire all of them? So, Helene, I'm going to pass this over to you, because this is, interesting territory we're stepping into here. So, kind of, how can a founder or a management team determine the answer to that big question?
Sure, and it is really a big question. And the thing is that we found with the client work that we do is that is a very subjective answer. And kind of so many people and so many leaders in businesses, they might have a specific relationship with someone and like, yeah, of course I'm going to rehire them. And then with another person, the relationship might be a little bit strained. And then they go, no, I'm definitely not going to hire that person. So I think the first thing for me, there's so many things to mention here quickly. I'll see if I can do it quickly. The first thing, I'm very passionate about this. The first thing is almost like a tip is do a 360 degree feedback review. Don't only count on the manager's feedback, because you don't know what that relationship is like. And don't trust your own kind of point of view in terms of if you are the leader of that person. You need to get other people's opinions, people that work for them, people that report into that person, clients, peers, other managers in the business, depending on how big your business is, but really get an objective view from how other people are experiencing this person. And then you can also identify, is it useful to rehire this person or enthusiastically rehire this person? I think the other thing is also that plays a big part, and something that we work a lot with is the whole thing around personalities. Have you created and have you set up this person well enough so that they can play to the strengths of their personalities? Because very often we're trying to put a square in a round hole, and the moment we actually just shift them slightly, then they start to flourish, and then that engagement comes in and the productivity increases. So having said all of that is, what are you doing as a leader to make sure that you know how to do performance reviews? Are you doing it really well? And also, what are you doing in order to develop your own leadership skills so that you can actually support the people that you are deciding on whether you're going to enthusiastically rehire them? There's that story around, I'm sure some of you have read the book, Turn the Ship Around. And they talk about the Santa Fe submarine. It was the worst performing submarine. Change in leadership, it became the best performing submarine. So we need to be careful to first look at, oh, it's our people who's not performing. What are you doing as a leader to make sure that you do it really well? That's kind of my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, that concept of extreme ownership was thrown out a little bit earlier in one of the keynotes as well. I think it's critically important. Look at number one first. No, thanks for that, Helene. I think we can speak for, a whole hour on some of the things you've touched on there. Just to move us onto one other principle that's kind of key in scale-up methodology is kind of like creating and really instilling core company values. So John, I'm going to pass this one to you. Like, how does a founder or management team go about creating core values, and how do you then really make sure that it's part of the DNA of the company, that everyone lives and breathes those values?
Sure. So I mean, values, I suppose, they're never an easy thing to actually create, especially for a company with so many different personality types and all of that. But I mean, it's really, as the founders, you really need to actually start identifying what are your beliefs? What do you want your business to stand for? And how do you want other people to look at your business and perceive it? So, I mean, setting the goals, it's also got to be a bit of a unanimous decision. So you've got to get the entire team that's involved at the company at that level to really buy into it and to have a say in what the values are. You might find that what you feel is what the company DNA should be could actually be completely far off the mark. I mean, at the end of the day, your values are going to really define what your company's culture is like, and the type of people you're basically going to attract to your business as well. So, I mean, I think a good one to remember is that when it comes to values, when it comes to company culture, is that it is leader-led, but it's definitely people-driven. So as soon as you look at what your values are, you look at that, define them, align it with your people, but don't stop there. Start looking at co-designing it as well. And then if it doesn't really fit the mark after you've tried it out, redesign it. Values aren't set in stone. They are meant to change as the company evolves as well.
Brilliant. No, thanks for that, John. I think, like I've seen over the last couple of years in our own business, like how people have, the people in the team have really picked up the core values, and they are carrying it forward. Like, I think if you create it and you instill it and the team buys into it, like, every person then takes that upon themselves to drive those values and to live it. And then you can, someone would call someone else out when they're not living those values, or praise someone when they are. So it's really a super powerful tool in terms of creating a great culture. Now, the other thing that's, sorry, Dean, yes, go for it.
Lo, maybe something just for the listeners, what you can do is, if you already have your company values, a really good exercise, and you can do this in your meeting huddle, you can do it in a team development workshop, but it's really to ask a few questions in terms of, if your values are already existing, what about each value excites you? What about this value do you do in your own private life? And what about this value concerns you? And just by discussing those three things amongst people and amongst team members already starts kind of almost creating a sense of buy-in, because now you can hear what excites you about it, where you're already showing this value, and what part of it concerns you. For example, if a value is extreme ownership, what concerns me is, if I've made a mess, I really have to own up to it. But what excites me is that I know my colleagues are going to do their stuff.
Yeah.
Very.
I love it. That's a nice practical way to unpack it. Thank you for that golden share. I'm sure a lot of people from this from the audience will be implementing that in the next sit down around values. Thanks. Then one of the biggest barriers to scaling up a company, we said in the very beginning, is leadership. A company's inability to both attract and also grow the leadership team that it needs to keep scaling and to grow into the future. So the first part of it for me is attracting leaders. John, maybe I'll ask that to you. How does a company go about attracting staff so well that it gets, it attracts leaders from outside into the organization?
Well, I mean, I think one of the most important things is the company actually has to show that they grow their leaders. So before actually trying to attract external people that are already at a leadership position, it's to actually take stock of your current employees and what are you doing to put them into that leadership position. I mean, yes, it's not everyone is geared towards being a leader, either just because they don't have it in them or they don't want to. Not everyone wants to lead people. But it is, what are you doing to get those stars that you've already got to shine brighter and to be the leaders that you need in your organization? Only then can you really actually, show the outside world about what we do to keep people and what we do to grow people. Will they actually, those people already that are leaders will look and go, well, I want to be a leader there. So until you really take stock internally, in my view, you can't really attract great people externally.
Lena, I'm sure you have a lot to say about growing leaders as well. We have one last minute here on our panel before the break. I'd love to give that to you to talk about this, because I know it's a passion of yours.
Yeah, thank you. So just 100% in terms of what Jonah has said is it's really about first looking at what you are doing for the people inside your business. Remember, leadership is a skill. Yes, some people are naturally born with leaders, but it's a skill. You need to nurture it. You need to develop it. You need to play with it, reflect with it, make mistakes with it. If you're not going to allow a learning type organization within your culture, then even leaders are not going to be willing to take risks and make mistakes and see what they can do differently with their people. How are you then supposed to attract outside talent, like the best of the best, if you don't allow that internally in your business? And I think it's, like Dani mentioned it, it starts with you. So when we do leadership development processes and programs, it's really about leading self first. Like, how much time do you spend on understanding yourself and really sussing out your own strengths and weaknesses and how you behave in certain things? Then it's about leading individuals. What can I do? Jono, you mentioned coaching, mentoring. What skill can I develop in order to lead each individual in my team? And then it's about leading teams, and then like taking those teams from performance to high performance, or from storming to performance. But it really does start with you, and also internally in the business.
Sure.
And I can say a lot more, but I'll stop.
I'm sure I can feel the passion and the energy. It's electric. Thank you so much. Guys, unfortunately, we've limited it to a 20-minute little panel just to make sure we get the greatest golden nuggets from you guys, because we want to fit the full scale-up methodology into 2.5 hours with a coffee break. So thank you for bringing your absolute best to this panel. Like, your insights and your energy is amazing. I'm so excited, and I'm sure there's a lot of things that some of our founders on the call today will take home and will really think about as they lead their people in this new normal that we're finding ourselves in. Thank you so much for joining us.
Very welcome.
Hello. Thanks for having us.
Guys. Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks. Setlhani, are you with us this morning?
I'm here. Hello, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning. Guys, I'm going to hand over to Donna. Donna's going to be doing the next interview, but we're very, very blessed to have Mr. Setlhani Manchidi from Investec with us here today. He is the head of Investec CSI and probably one of the biggest authorities in terms of corporate CSI on the continent. He's also an incredibly busy man as a result of that. So we're super blessed to have him speak here today. Donna's going to be speaking to him about just, corporate's role in the entrepreneurship ecosystem and helping to build sustainable companies. Over to you, gents.
Setlhani, it's so great to have you here. We're so looking forward to hear your knowledge and experience of scale up for companies in South Africa. But firstly, before I do that, are you doing well today?
I'm very well, thanks, and you, Dana, and thank you very much for having us this morning.
Oh, wonderful. That is wonderful. Setlhani, Lau gave such an amazing introduction already to you. Just for the viewers, I can just re-mention Setlhani Manchidi, the head of corporate social investment at Investec. He's also one of our key network partners in some of the programs that we run. Setlhani, really great to have you here with us. Our topic for today is just to pick your brain on your experience and knowledge on the importance of scale-up companies in South Africa. Setlhani, perhaps as introduction from your side, tell us a little bit more about the why and what of entrepreneurship at Investec CSI.
Well, I think suffice for those who are familiar with our brand, with our firm, we pride ourselves in being an entrepreneurial firm. And that's largely seen in the way in which we foster an entrepreneurial work environment that fully embraces what I call the entrepreneur, the urge for people to do things differently, innovatively and creatively all the time. So it's very important for us embracing that spirit to actually nurture, because we work a lot with young professionals who are entrepreneurs in their own right, and we understand the demanding and uncertain nature of entrepreneurship as a journey. So the nature of it is such that there's need for support, and we also value, by the way, in the bigger scheme of things, understand that entrepreneurs are an important asset that we as a country need to cultivate, nurture, develop, and support in whatever shape or form. But I think the most important thing and most important reason why it is that we at Investec CSI in particular value entrepreneurship is the understanding that it is only through entrepreneurship that we'll be able to create opportunity for as many people as possible to become active economic participants in society. And when I talk about active economic participants in society, it's important to us because when you're active in the economy, your sense of worth, your sense of dignity, your ability to put bread on the table, your sense of contribution, your whole sense of being really returns to you. And it's very, very important that we contribute towards creating an environment that people can realize their own self-worth by becoming active economic participants in society, and actually in turn transforming their own lives and transforming the lives of many other people. So the power of entrepreneurship in facilitating broader societal transformation is key. But let's also not forget that South Africa has got many societal challenges, and it is only through entrepreneurship that we can solve and address many of these. Not not by virtue of making charitable donations and so on and so forth. It's actually living within communities and understanding what are the various pain points that people have, because in the various pain points that people have lies the opportunity for business to thrive, to emerge, to grow.
Setlagani, active economic participants, I can truly attest that that's so important. I know Investec CSI is actively involved with various projects where you help entrepreneurs to become active economic participants. Would you be so kind to elaborate a little bit more on some of these programs, as well as some the main objectives of some of these programs?
Well, you know, the key thing driving what I've already spoken about, which is broader societal transformation through entrepreneurship, is facilitating the growth of these enterprises. Because in the growth of these enterprises lies the growth of many other people. And the growth of these enterprises requires, in the main, that we must help them increase their sales. We must give them increased networks to new clientele, increased networks where they were able to tap into to access funding and finance, but not only just access funding and finance, but also be ready to receive this finance. And that's very important. So in the main, we said the entrepreneurship spectrum is very wide, and there are only 2 or 3 areas in which we have chosen to participate. One is to say that we've really got to contribute towards the pipeline of emerging entrepreneurs. So we've got to support those who are still thinking, who are unsure whether they're entrepreneurial or not, but are in the early stages of entrepreneurship. And therefore, an initiative such as a startup school, which is online, and not because of COVID, but just naturally, just right from the beginning was always an online school, it really is aimed at introducing the very basic tenets of entrepreneurship to those people who are just starting out, those people who are perhaps innovators, those people who are just sitting in their own right and thinking, how best do I even put my foot into this kind of, you know, space at all? And that's where the startup school is one of those that we pride ourselves in partnership with UCT's GSB. But also the second piece is that of, if we are to grow enterprises, we really have to shift 2 needles. And the one needle is their ability to fundraise. And that's why, in partnership with OCFO, which is where we know each other very well, Dana and Lo, is the facilitation of the finance readiness program. It's understanding that, of course, finance is key and is important, but it isn't just about finance. It is about the readiness to receive this finance. You know, I'm a social entrepreneur, so I'm very passionate about making a difference to people's lives. But so are entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs are very passionate beings about that which is just theirs. You know, they're very passionate about just that dream of theirs that they've got. But in many instances, structurally, they've gone and neglected the very basics that they should be having in place, be it HR policies, be it a funding model, be it a business logical model, not just driven by the passion. Of course, the passion is important. And I think all entrepreneurs listening to me this morning must be thinking, oh, why is he dissing passion? I'm not dissing passion. I think passion is prize one. It's an important point. But I think many of those who've experienced this journey will understand that it takes much more than just passion to make it an entrepreneurship. And part of it is nurturing and understanding and navigating what those basic pillars of running a business, whether it's HR, whether it's economics, whether it's tax and all other legalese that you're supposed to have in place. And for us to work very closely, and this I must give all credit to Dana and Lo and OCFO for really doing the hard work and panel beating the businesses in such a way that they become very attractive for funders, for investors to come on board. I mean, that's an awesome opportunity that you position businesses, you know, increasing their chances of getting funding, but actually forget the funding piece. Just logically better structuring their businesses so that they become efficient, effective. Wow, even if you don't get funding, for us, I just get excited by the panel beat here. You know, just you know, it's like we're panel beaters, but panel beaters of a different kind, not those that you find by the car workshops that are trying to fit in lights and so on, but panel beaters of business, and in partnerships with entrepreneurs who fully appreciate. I mean, I often look at the kind of gap analysis that we do together, and what the gap analysis kind of gives as a diagnosis of what's possibly wrong in the business. But for the entrepreneur to look at that gap analysis and to identify and see the gap and say, I actually understood it. I thought I understood the gap. I thought I knew the gap, but I never realized the extent to which this was of paramount importance, and that this very piece that I've possibly neglected could work against me and my business in the future. So the finance readiness piece, ladies and gentlemen, all of you entrepreneurs are looking at us today. It's one piece that I get very, very excited about. But the second needle, Dana, that we ought to watch is that of access to markets. I mean, really, it is only in the growth of sales that we'll look back and say, this business requires more people. This business is reporting increased turnover. This business is reporting better profits. This business can perhaps in the long run be thinking about structuring its own CSI program, simply because of the sheer volumes, the level of activity that we would have put in place. And there again, in partnership with OCFO, ours is to really look at businesses and really say, how do we really pursue leads? How do we make sure that we do much better at positioning ourselves in this business and really opening as many doors as possible? Yeah, of course, the doors that we may open initially might be local, but actually we've got to think not only just local, but also think globally. And that's why, for example, one of the other pieces that we've always had until COVID-19 hit was the global exposure program, which saw us take youngsters in emerging entrepreneurs in various sectors. I mean, we have gone recently with those in media to Bangalore. We have gone with those in agriculture to Israel. We've gone with those in tech to Silicon Valley. I mean, again, there's the understanding that global exposure just gives you different perspective. Sometimes you have to visit places that are just a tiny bit ahead of you, so that when the curve hits you, you're better positioned as an entrepreneur to respond and to take full advantage of it. Dan, I mean, I can carry on. So the problem is you ask me the question, and then this is where you've really touched the nerve.
Thank you so much, Setlugani. It's so great to hear you talk with so much passion about entrepreneurship. Thank you for Investec CSI for all the amazing programs that you run. You really care about entrepreneurship. You really care about companies scaling up. And yeah, we just want to thank you as well for your time today, Setlugani.
No, and thank you very much for all that you do. I must say to you, if there's ever a time where all hands on deck are required, it's now. And I want to appeal to you as OCFO to continue in partnership with ourselves and many others. But I want to appeal to all entrepreneurs, all those who participate in the entrepreneurship ecosystem, to say, if there's ever a time for all hands on deck, it is now. And it's a very challenging time, both because of COVID and the economic kind of environment that we had always found ourselves in. But it is time that we can shift. This is like a reset button of sorts, but a reset button that asks and requires of all of us to participate in whatever shape or form to make a meaningful contribution, not only to South Africa, but the world at large. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the session.
Thank you, Setlugani.
Thank you, Setlugani. Thank you, Donna, gents. Very inspiring stuff. Great to hear some of those thoughts and to see a corporate so passionate about entrepreneurship success in South Africa. That's really amazing. Guys, we're just after that inspirational session. We're just going to head over to our next key element of this day. We've covered strategy and people in the first two sections prior to the break. We're now heading into execution, and then we'll cover cash and finance at the end. So for execution, the first keynote will be Wilhelm Walser, who has served in various COO and operational manager roles over the last decade, who's got really great insight in terms of how do you build the operational infrastructure for a company to seamlessly scale. You guys will remember, while Wilhelm joins me on the call, I'll steal the 1 minute, that scalable infrastructure is one of the key barriers to sustained scale up. So we want to make sure that we remove that barrier as well as we can. And I'm going to hand over to Wilhelm to show us how to do that.
Great. Thank you, Lo. Thank you, guys. It's absolutely wonderful being with you. So throughout the presentations today, from almost every keynote speaker, someone has mentioned something about Vern Harnish or scale-up methodology. And I also saw there in Helene Smuts' background, she had also had this book on the bookshelf, Scaling Up. And this is really what I'm going to be talking to about through this morning when it comes to execution. So there are many points in execution strategy, but I'm going to take us quick in this 10 minutes, take us through what is a healthy execution, 7 healthy execution habits that we at Outsource CFO take on internally, but also look at our clients and assisting them with these execution habits. Now, when President Ramaphosa announced that we are going to go into lockdown, we decided at Outsource CFO, we're not going to wait for the 26th of March. We went into lockdown within 24 hours after his first initial announcement. And it was a trying time for all businesses around the world, but we really found that our core execution capabilities was still in place and was still pitch perfect, needed some refining, but it was still perfect for what we are striving to achieve in this new global age. So we go through the 7. So the first is that the execution team is healthy and aligned. Okay, so you've got your core team around you, people, your coaches, your confidence, and also the decision makers within the business. It is of critical importance that you actively seek to eliminate dysfunctional execution teams. Dysfunctional execution teams just disrupt any scale-up venture when you're spending time talking about each other and not focusing on the business. Conflict happens between individuals, but at the end of the day, if we can all come around the table and sit in an environment whereby we can openly put on the table what's on our heart, what's on our minds, what's bugging us. That's what makes a execution team so strong and healthy, and you come out better for that at the end of the day. So that's one of the first points that Harnish speaks to, and what we really adopt as an internal principle as the executive team at Outsource CFO. Number 2, is it important to ensure that everyone is aligned with the number 1 thing that needs to be accomplished this quarter to move the company forward. Yvonne mentioned it, Donna mentioned it as well. Every 90 days, we sit as a board, as an executive management team, and we plan the next 90 days. But also very important is we look back. What has transpired over the last 90 days? How did we react as a board? Because introspection is very important. We look at what went well, what did we finish, and where did we miss the mark? And we look at how those things that we've missed, how do we incorporate that into our next 90 days? There's so many guys that just focus on the bad or just focus on the positive. It's important to bring in that balance when it comes to managing the team and looking at and deciding together what is that one thing or that critical number that we as a company will be striving for in the next quarter. Something that many organizations just miss and don't think about is including your suppliers in this process, sharing with them what your number 1 goal is for the next quarter, and getting them to buy into your organization. Any outsourced partner that forms that critical part to your organization or provides that critical service, include them in this process. Share this with them, get them on board so that they can align their delivery as well to meet your number 1 goal. Right, healthy habit number 3, communication rhythms is established and information moves through the organization accurately and quickly. This is really where your team meetings come into play, but also your technology and systems. Now, I'm a big fan of technology. I head up technology and innovation at Outsource CFO. And one thing that we ensure is that as we identify communication barriers where information is missing or duplicated, we look at why does that happen and how can we possibly use technology to assist in smoothing out these communication challenges and rhythms. So can we use technology to automatically flow information from one system to another, reducing human error, reducing human intervention, and really making it fun for people around us. The other thing that we do is we ensure that, and Donna also spoke about this from a people perspective, that really we look after our people. We have regular team check-ins. We have a Monday formal check-in where it's a formal structure, and we have a Friday check-in where it's a little bit more informal. How was your weekend? Let's play a game. Especially in this time of remote, bringing in the team, ensuring that we take care of both the professional communication, but also the interpersonal communication, has really enabled us to execute on our client deliverables whilst maintaining that level of professionalism. If we look at healthy habit number 4, is that every facet of the organization has a person assigned with the accountability for ensuring goals are met. So the important word here is the word accountability. And it's a reminder that accountability is there because we care, not because we want to criticize or point a finger. Accountability is done out of love. So within your execution team, we keep each other accountable because we love each other, because we care for each other, because we work together. As a board, we're very fortunate to be friends and business colleagues. But when it comes to the work, we keep each other accountable so that we can grow this organization and keep walking on our scaling journey, the one that we've set out a couple of years ago. Right, so healthy habit number 5, ongoing employee input is collected to identify obstacles and opportunities. We see so many times that the board function of an organization sits on top and they manage, and they give direction, give strategy, give vision, and expect everyone else just to fall in line. I read an article many years back, and it really stuck with me from Wati Bason, whereby he will ensure that every manager will go down to till level or bookshelf, store shelf level, or packing grocery bags once a month, no matter what level you're at. So what means is that your most senior executive will come down to the customer interface and ensure that they have the ability to see what is going on. Is the vision still being lived by the people? And is the customer experiencing it? And where are those opportunities that can be identified for growth and success and speed? So from an executive team, execution on a day-to-day basis, ensure that you ingrain yourself from time to time in the actual work as well. So you stay abreast of what's happening and you can bring positive change and improvements to the process. It's also important to regularly do surveys with your team. We do regular surveys up to twice a week, sometimes even weekly, to know where our team is at, how things are going, any issues that we need to know of, any improvement recommendations, always putting that positive to it, to always put the organization first and take us to the next level. Right, almost through it. Number 6, reporting and analysis of customer feedback data is as frequent and accurate as financial data. Money isn't everything, but if you don't have customers, you won't have money. Right? So that we experience, that most entrepreneurs experience in their scaling journey as they start out and as they need to obtain new customers in order to grow to grow their financial revenue. Ensure that you engage regularly, monthly, quarterly with your customers direct. Have someone pick up the phone, give your customer a call, say, hi, this is Wilhelm from OCFO. How are you doing? Are you happy? Anything we can improve on? Anyone that you want to refer? So picking up that call and just calling your client out of the love for that client just does so much for your business. And then ensuring that reporting and feedback goes back into your operational systems so that you can keep track of that data and also identify trends for your organization to improve proactively. Last one that I'm going to share today is that your core values and purpose are alive in the organization. I see this mental picture of posters on the wall with all the core values, and that is fantastic. It should be there, but it's on the wall. It needs to be alive in people's hearts. People that you employ need to be able to buy into the vision. Your systems need to live the vision. Hey, that sounds weird, hey? And you can do a lot of things with artificial intelligence, but you can also set up your systems that as goals are achieved throughout the course of work, that it highlights those core values by submitting, we're in financial services, of course, but submitting your VAT has brought out a core value of excellence at OCFO. Doing it on time makes you a team player. It really brings alive the organization's purpose and vision and values. So ensure that you regularly sit with your team, bringing that through, reminding people what the values are, and really ingrain that in your interview and your employment process. So there are many other execution strategies. I can really recommend scale-up methodology. It really helps us at OCFO to continue our own scaling journey, as well as that of our clients. So with that, thank you very much. Lo, I'm gonna hand back to you.
Thank you, Willem. Thank you for all those insights and for breaking down a couple of those Rockefeller habits for us. Really, really important stuff, and kind of a great baseline to challenge yourself as a management team on driving perfect execution within the company. So after this power keynote, we're moving on to a panel discussion. Can I ask Leanne and Skalk to please jump on with me? So Leanne is the practice manager at OCFO. So she's in charge of a lot of the operational execution of the OCFO team on our side. And Skalk is a good friend of mine and a founder of an e-commerce business that I think they're the biggest pet food distributor, e-commerce pet food distributor in the country, I believe. Skalk, is that right?
Biggest online pet food retailer. So technical term, but retailer, yeah.
Very, very, very important. So he's built, I think a retailer kind of business is highly complex, right? You have your e-commerce front end, you have your operational back end in terms of distribution and fulfilling orders and a whole bunch of different elements to that. And he's also recently sold out his position. So he's gone full circle from building the company up to work like clockwork so that he can step out of the business. So some really interesting insights that should come from these two professionals. Guys, great to have you both on the panel.
Thanks, Lo.
Great. So just because I was on you now, can I fire the first question in your direction? I would like to know, what does a company look like when execution is going well, and what does it look like when it's not going well?
I think, it's been alluded to already, where I think the easiest way to identify if it's not in place is if there's blaming among your team members. If there's that judgment being passed from one person to another and there's no clear ownership and accountability. How do you identify? Well, it's process. I think it comes through as simply have you identified the 5 to 9 key processes within your business that drives your business forward? And then within each of those processes, are there refined processes to make sure that when anything fails, you can quickly just, run through the nodes, understand which piece of your process fell apart, and then being able to address that, objectively without, blaming or attacking a person. You actually just dissect your process, make sure that you do the root cause analysis, either adjust the process or add, capacity within that process. And capacity could simply mean retraining a person as well. So I think we're very fast to react rather than, listen to process.
Right. No, I love the systemized approach that you're bringing to it. I can hear the thought process comes from a lot of years of experience in building a great company. Thanks so much for that. Leanne, over to you. People have been mentioned in strategy. They've been mentioned, obviously, in the people section. They've been mentioned by Willem now under operations and execution. So people are really kind of a core part of any business. How would you rate the importance of people just in this process of creating, clockwork-like execution within a company?
I think people are pretty much your biggest asset when you start up a business. I think a lot of people who are in startups do know that having the right team and having the right people with the right attitude on your team goes a really long way in ensuring that you scale up and that you succeed as a company. I think without the buy-in of your team, your strategy will fall flat on its face. People play a big part in delivering the vision of, this streamlined operation and execution. One of my favorite philosophies in management says that you can buy a man's time and you can buy his physical presence at a given time, in a given place or time, but what you cannot buy from people is loyalty and initiative and the devotion of their hearts. And how you have to do those things is you have to earn those things. You have to be able to inspire them. So I think people are by far the biggest, your biggest asset and who you will need to carry out your vision and to scale up as a business. So yeah, super important.
Sure. No, thanks for that, Leanne. I can hear it draws from deep wells there as well in terms of managing people operations, and I love the heart behind all of it. That's magical. Thanks so much. Skalk, something that was mentioned quite a lot already is meeting rhythms. Willem also mentioned that as one of his core 7 habits for the company. I'd love to hear from you practically within a company like Pet Heaven. What are the meeting rhythms that you guys installed to make sure that everything works and the communication flows?
I think, I want to just add on to Leanne and just say people are everything. If you think about it, people are your customer, people are your team, people are your investors, people are your bankers, your suppliers, right? So it all starts with that. And I guess that relationship is what you need to form. But what makes business complex is people, because every person has their own idea of what strategy is, which way the company is going, what direction we're headed in, and what they want to do as well. So there's so many moving parts and complexity within a person, then add a bunch of people together. And so meeting rhythms and process, I mean, I can't actually, just verbalize enough how important this is. So practically within our organization, meeting rhythms are basically the tool that I use as a CEO to make sure that my company is aligned with the core purpose, but the vision of the business and our short, long and midterm strategies. So that starts, from the morning operations call, first thing in the morning, where we have all our operational guys on the call, or at least our operational supervisors, to make sure that everybody's aware, any issues, anything where we're stuck, anywhere we're held back. What is your daily priority? And we always have what we refer to a pack leader. So we don't have managers in our company, we only have leaders. We come from the standpoint to say that you don't manage people. You manage process and you lead people. And the way for us to manage process and avoid that managing people part is to make sure that we have clear communication every single day to align the people with the expectation from leadership, right? So we clearly set those expectations in the daily or the morning call, what we refer to. Then directly after that, we have a daily huddle, which basically our senior pack leaders or our senior leaders in the business, we have a 30-minute call and we set our own priorities as well with clarity. So basically we add as much detail within that to give everybody the context of what you're working on that day, because that context provides continuity and congruity. Congruity, is that even a word? But anyway, you know what I mean. So it creates an alignment between us to say, oh, somebody's working on this. Actually, let me jump on that call with you because I think I can add value. Or actually, I had this discussion with this person, which I think you can take forward within that. Or be careful, don't run that promo yet because our back end can't handle it. So quickly, we start finding this alignment on a daily basis, right? Then probably the most important for me are the functional meetings. So I schedule all my functional or departmental meetings on one day. So obviously each one of my HODs will only have one meeting that day, but I essentially have about 6 going all the way through from finance, customer service, buying, marketing. I'm somebody that enjoys knowing what's going on in every part of my business. So I spend that hour to realign and really do KPI reviews with the department, setting the priority for the week, and then discussing and clearing any stucks or dependencies on anybody else within that thing. And then, like I said, the key piece here is to make sure that I get my team's priorities, but then realigning their priorities if necessary to fit into the company structure or the company kind of vision for the next couple of months. So massively important.
Yeah, there's a lot in there. I'm sure everyone is sitting with a notepad, just taking notes. Luckily, I know we've got this recording as well, Scott. I'm going to reference some of that back to some of those points you've made. That's incredible. Thanks so much for sharing. Love the kind of the daily huddles and all of the different elements to manage kind of pack leader meetings throughout the course of a week, in the course of a day, to make sure that information pulses through the business all the time. I think that's super important. Leanne, kind of flowing from that, planning with a team is also a critically important part of running that team. Like, how do you go about planning in an organization where there's a lot of people and a lot of processes that are running? How do you guys approach that?
I absolutely loved what Schalk was saying about managing processes and leading people, and I think that's something that I will take away from this conversation. Going on to your question with what are the tips for planning in a team? I think we do a lot of meetings because we have a lot of check-in meetings, which is super important because when I would suppose when we started in the remote working environment, because of trying to cover that gap of not being together, there was a lot of check-in meetings that were put in place, sort of overcompensating because we were not seeing your team members. You wanted to make sure that everyone is okay. Daily check-ins with everyone, maybe not the smartest thing to do, but for planning for a team, I think what I've learned in the past 6 or 7 months is that always start with the end in mind. The bigger picture, what is it that we're trying to achieve? After you have looked at the bigger picture, you'll be able to drill down into the specific elements and the specific things for each team member. And to be realistic and flexible. Sometimes things that we agreed on last week are not possible, just to understand where the team is stuck, what things you need to move around and what bottlenecks are there. To always have an agenda because that is super important. We don't have unlimited time. Everyone is busy actually. In the past 7 months, I've realized everyone actually is very busy. So to always bring an agenda to the meeting, make sure that everybody knows what we're discussing, prepare for the meeting in advance. There's nothing as time wasting as getting to a meeting and no one is prepared. And instead of it being a meeting where you decide on things, it becomes a working meeting where you discuss on the things, right? So I think one of the other big things is to always have clear action steps from this meeting. What is the outcome of this meeting? Where does everybody go from here? And the last step I would say would be to reevaluate. We don't have perfect systems. Nobody has perfect systems. If they are, I would like to see them, please. But it's a good place to be able to reevaluate, to adapt and change things that are not working, improve on the things that are working, and maybe discard things that are not working when it comes to planning with your team. So that's what I would say.
Thanks, Leanne. There's a lot of gold in there. Appreciate it. Scott, back over to you. Managing large data sets and figuring out like what the kind of key metrics to track and manage on and to improve on those is kind of a critically important aspect. I'd love to hear from you from a practical entrepreneur's perspective. How do you go about data management and driving those, identifying and driving key metrics?
I think, yeah, like Leanne said, you need to have kind of clear outcomes for things. And the only way that you can have a clear outcome is if you measure, right? So I think that the point of data collecting, I think it's good to just understand or start there, is that why are we collecting data? I mean, it's the big topic, like big data this and data that, and it's like, but people don't know what to do with data. They don't know how to process data. They don't know how to look at data. And data seems to be this like Excel spreadsheet with 10,000 lines, which is, it's just not going to say anything. So I like to approach data to say, what do I want the data to do for me? And there's 3 questions that I like to ask and answer is, where are they? So where are my customers? who are they? So what do they look like? Can I identify them and can I replicate them? Can I create this box basically to put them in? And what works for them? So, you know, where are they? Like, what platform are they using? You know, where do they live? What devices are they using? What networks are they on? That way I can identify customers and I know where to go and attract my customers and go and speak to them, right? So it's moving away a little bit from execution, but ultimately when we put process in place, we make sure that we build in measures into every single process, whether it's a daily checklist, whether it's a dashboard, whether it's a, you know, an SMS pinging us to tell us if something's fallen over. But ultimately, looking at data as a support to a solution as opposed to a product within your business, I just don't see that. I think that, you know, if you're a CEO and you pop onto your customer service once a week and you spend an hour there reading customer comments, you'll get such an ingrained view of what your customers are actually asking, what they're looking for. I always say to my people, like, if somebody like lodges a customer service request with us, you should be happy, because that person is opening a dialogue with you and they're saying like, hey, I really want to use your service. I like what you're doing, but I just don't like this piece of it. And that is what we should be listening to instead of looking at big data. Like, your conversion rates, great. It's amazing. It could tell you if there's a problem, but it's not going to tell you what the problem is. So I feel that if you're a startup and you're wanting to scale, you don't have that big data. So look at the little data and understand what people are saying, as opposed to, you know, complaining about a delivery. Understand why there's a problem and solve for that. That data to me is a lot more valuable on a scaling up level than, you know, having thousands of lines of Excel spreadsheets, you know, just floating around.
Definitely. No, thanks for that, Scott. Super solid. Yeah, and we're on kind of on our last minute here. I'd just love to hear your input, given your background in terms of your masters and the PhD you're working on. Just in terms of the execution teams working on innovation and improving process versus working on actual executing on delivering the product and service. How do you manage that push and pull between the two?
I would say it's they're not mutually exclusive. In a perfect world, you do the one and then do the other. You have to do both. Operational excellence will generate today's profit, right? But innovation excellence will actually get you tomorrow's profit. So you're not only focused on today's profit in a business, you're focused on today's profit and tomorrow's profit. So you have to know that, I think, employee-led innovation is one of the most sustainable sources of innovation, because they work on the system, because they're on the ground, they know what's happening, they are better positioned to keep building and give suggestions. So I think maybe to always inspire your team members to know where to improve, to look out for things that stick out, that can be innovated on. And I think that will be a great source of innovation for any business.
Love that. Yeah, and thank you very much, Skalk, to you as well. It's been brilliant having you guys here. I know we can speak about this for a whole day long, I'm sure. Unfortunately, we have a power 20 minutes for it, and we're just about through. But thank you both for your time today and for sharing your expertise and your insights and your experience with all of our founders here on the call. It's been awesome to hear you speak, and I'm sure we'll reference back to this in future. Great to have both of you guys. Great. So just before we head on to finance, which is the last part of today's kind of chapters, we thought we'll add one extra last keynote in, because there's someone that I think, if I think of scale up journey, I think about Mike Scott. He's one of the authorities worldwide for me in terms of how to build a great scale up company and be a great remote leader. Him and his family have recently relocated to Australia, which I think he's calling from over there today. Mike, if you can jump on with me, it's such a privilege to have you on the call with us today. We can't wait to hear you share some of the things that you've found valuable in terms of, your own scale-up journey and how founders can manage themselves in a personal capacity as a human being while driving this kind of growth journey with their companies. Great to have you.
Yeah, good to see you, Lo. Thanks for having me, and hello to everybody from Australia. My lighting's bad because it's dark outside here, so apologies for that. So guys, I do have a couple of slides, but I won't actually share them. I'll just talk through them because it should be quite quick. So I was asked to speak on managing oneself through growth or through scale. And the first thing I wanted to say when I was asked to do that is, you know, why are you asking me that? Because I haven't figured that out at all. I don't know anyone who has, but I certainly have learned some things along the way. And I guess that's what I want to share with you today. So listening to the back of that panel is actually a great segue into the first part of what I speak about, which is staying connected. So even though I was asked to speak on managing oneself, a very large part of managing oneself is actually how you are connecting with the people around you in your team, in your business, in your business at large. So just some notes here. So number one, you're going to hear lots of repetition from that panel you actually just heard. But number one, have a daily huddle with your team every single day. So there's 30 people in my business. I don't meet with them every day. I meet with my leadership team, which is 5 people every single day for 15 minutes. Pretty much everything I'm going to speak about today, I've written articles about. So if you want more detail on anything, just hit me up and I'll send you some links. Number two, have a weekly leadership meeting. That meeting is 2 hours long. That's where we hit the actionables for the next 7 days. That's going to drive us towards our quarterly objectives. So we have this weekly cadence that if you're on track for the week, you're on track for the quarter. And so that goes all the way up to your vision. Quarterly planning, critical. That is the pulse of our business. Every 90 days we meet. When we can meet in person, we go away for 3 days together with the leadership team. We review the quarter and we plan the quarter ahead. In the age of COVID, I'm sitting in Australia. So we've just finished our quarterly planning on Sunday. That was 3 hours a day for 7 days. Happy to share agendas on this with anyone. This is critical to setting focuses, staying connected, and reducing the loneliness that the world is feeling at the moment with all of this COVID stuff. I do a Monday video. So for 5 minutes every single Monday, I send a video to my whole business. And that video covers a reminder of some of our vision stuff. It is the observations and learnings that I've had for the week. It's my intentions for the week, which helps me to focus exactly what I'm doing and share that with my business. It's the books and content I'm consuming, and it's notable meetings or engagements I'm going to have in the week ahead. That really helps me stay connected to my team because I invite engagement and I often have really good conversations off that. It helps them because it gives a window into the world through my eyes and they can understand what's helping me make decisions, what's influencing me, what am I learning, what am I reading, you know, where am I getting these crazy ideas from. We have a company-wide stand-up, which is every single week for 30 minutes. I don't run that. My co-founder and COO runs that. So that's financial updates, project updates, people news, celebrations, just full transparency sharing. And then we do a little bit of a fun thing after that every single session. I'm starting something now called CEO Ask Me Anythings, so AMAs. These will be twice monthly for 1 hour each. We'll just agree on topics. They'll be voted on. I won't choose them. Anyone can ask anything. And we'll have an hour discussion on whatever people want. That will be opt-in, it won't be compulsory. Then every quarter I do something called 27 questions, where I meet with every single person in the business once every quarter, one-on-one, and I ask them 27 questions. These questions are really about listening. I do a lot of talking in my business, but there's a time to talk and there's a time to listen. These sessions are around asking questions in a well-constructed manner to really understand where everybody is at. And then lastly, just have very regular calls with your team. Now, I haven't spoken about self-management here at all on purpose yet. And it's because a big part of self-management is staying connected to the people that you're working with. It's critical to form that togetherness before you can even start working on yourself. Then actually the way that I manage myself, and I guess the lesson that I want to leave everyone with today, or at least the takeaway, is habits, routines, and structure. For me, that's everything. And naturally, I'm not a very disciplined person. I've learned to become very structured and very disciplined because that's what sets me free. That's what gives me calm. That's what gives me peace of mind. I wrote an article recently on 23 habits that I do every single day to help with productivity, happiness, balance, family, business, everything. I'm just going to run through a couple of those with you today. And again, anyone can have the link they want, or you can reach out and discuss them with me. So number one, triage your tasks every day. So one of the first things I do in the morning is I just have an absolute brain dump of all the things that I have to do, my total to-do list. I use Trello and I use a process called the Eisenhower Matrix. And basically I just take everything that I need to do, stick it on a list, and I triage it. Is it important and urgent? Is it urgent but not important? Is it important but not urgent? Et cetera, et cetera. and I triage my tasks. Usually about half of them disappear and I realize they're not actually that important. The ones that really are important, what I do at that point is I schedule them onto my calendar. So I don't work from a to-do list. I work from a calendar. If I can't fit it on my calendar, if it's not on my calendar, it doesn't happen. So for example, I had to prep for this talk. I didn't just write down a to-do list. I put it down when I was asked to do the talk. I went, okay, this is important, but it's not urgent. So I get to schedule it. I put an hour in my diary. That was prep for ScaleConf. That happened because it was in my calendar, not because it was on my to-do list. So triage your tasks, but work off a calendar. Meditate at least once a day. It's now very mainstream. I don't have to discuss and explain what meditation is. Everyone knows it. I do that at least once a day. I'm a very monkey mind sort of person, very ADD. So for me, I meditate at least in the morning, usually in multiple times a day. Many ways to meditate. I like the Calm app, but there's tons of them available. This is hugely valuable for better decision-making, for taking a time out to think about something that might have gotten you upset or emotional, better ideation, better creativity. Meditate every day. I'm a huge fan of the Wim Hof breathing method. So I do 3 rounds of Wim Hof breath work every single day, and I do cold water exposure every single day. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's basically deep breathing and then very, very long breath holds, and then it's exposure to very cold water. What this does for me, it gives me massive mental clarity. It kind of resets my emotional system. So if I'm really pissed off about something or whatever, I jump in the water that's like 5 degrees, stay in there for 3 minutes. You're so cold, you can't think about any problems. So by the time you get out, you're actually like a new person. I also read for 90 minutes every single day. I classify listening to audiobooks as reading. So it might be reading a book like this, it might be listening to a book, but I make sure that I'm doing that for at least 90 minutes every day. Reading is like cheating, it really is. I don't believe that we need to have many original ideas anymore. I think most original ideas have been had, and those who still are going to have original ideas are far smarter than me. So, in the books that are available to everyone, you can learn everything you need to learn. Almost everything you're worrying about has been solved before by somebody else that's probably smarter, probably more experienced. So read a lot. I don't think our business would be what it is today if we didn't have a culture of reading and continual improvement. In addition to that, I dedicate 1 hour every single day to learning. It might double with reading, but I need to be continuously improving. I need to be knowing that I'm learning more and more and more how to deal with this growing business, how to deal with these challenges, how to deal with scale, how to deal with stresses that I don't even know are going to come yet. So learning and reading is like really important to be able to have the confidence that you're able to take on whatever the world's going to throw you. I set aside 2 blocks of 45 minutes completely focused work for tasks every day. So if you're a founder or an entrepreneur and you're listening to me speak now, you'll understand what I mean when I say it's very hard to actually do work, because you're either speaking to clients, or you're on the phone to this person, or you're putting out that fire, or you're giving a keynote like this, but when do you actually stop and go, okay, now I've got to get through my to-do list, the things that I've actually said are important and are on my calendar. The way I do that is I use a sort of modified Pomodoro technique. It's really simple. I block out 2 45-minute chunks on my calendar every day, and I turn off everything. So my email is off, my notifications are off, my WhatsApp is closed. You can't get hold of me during those 2 45 minutes. And that's my deep work time. That's when I get shit done. And I only need 2 45-minute blocks every day. I don't need 6 hours. If I'm just doing 2 45-minute chunks of properly dedicated, focused, get shit done time, generally I'm fine. I post every single day on LinkedIn. I have a very specific strategy around thought leadership and what we're trying to do with it. It's all about consistency. That helps me keep me sharp, because I don't want to put bullshit out onto LinkedIn. So I want to think about, like, why am I doing this? Who is it for? What will they get from it? What's the value? And that actually helps me stay sharp. I eat dinner with my family every single night without fail. So it's a routine, and it's a ritual that is very important for me. So every single night I sit down, no phones, no nothing. I eat dinner with my family, no matter what is going on. That helps me manage kind of what's important very well. And it's interesting because when people know that about you, they actually stop even trying to get you to block that. If they just know that you respect that more than anything else, they'll actually leave you alone during that hour. Another thing I do, and this might not be relatable for everyone, but this is a strangely effective self-management tool. I have a very intense daughter who's 5 years old. and I put her to sleep every night. And the reason why this is so intense is because it takes me between 1.5 and 2 hours of reading to her or making up stories. You try and make up a children's story for 2 hours without a break. And that actually does something really amazing for me. It makes me slow down, because if I'm all tense, she won't sleep. And it also makes me just sort of recalibrate why I'm doing everything I'm doing, because this little human that I'm putting to bed is the reason that I'm doing what I'm doing. So this might sound left field, but it brings focus back into why I'm doing everything I'm doing. So that's a really awesome ritual for me every night. It's really difficult for someone as impatient as me to sit for 1.5 hours or 2 hours putting a 5-year-old to sleep by reading to her, but it's hugely useful. The last thing I want to leave you with is being an entrepreneur is really, really difficult. You're going to feel alone. You're going to feel scared. You're going to feel like, what the hell am I doing? You're going to feel out of your depth. You're going to feel depressed. You're going to feel anxious often. It happens so often to me that I've developed a process, like a very specific, like, okay, Mike, you're in this bad mindset, time to pull yourself out of the mindset. So develop a process. And I wrote an article on this as well, and it went pretty crazy because people were like, oh my God, yes, I get this completely. So accept that it's difficult, accept you're going to have a lot of low points, accept you're going to feel like a total imposter at times. Accept that and don't try and change it, but develop a routine that you can catch yourself and go, okay, you're in that bad place. Initiate the routine. For me, it's got to do with cold water, push-ups, meditation. Like, it's things that I can control, and within 20 minutes, I'm in a totally different mindset and I'm back in the game. That's a really, really important thing, is to know yourself and actually develop actions that will influence your mood and your emotions, because it's totally possible. You can totally do that. I only had 10 minutes to speak, so I rushed through this as quickly as I could. If anybody wants to talk to me or dig into any of those highlights, you're welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty easy to find, Mike Scott. And I hope I'm not over time, Lo. I went as quick as I could.
That's perfect, Mike. No, so many golden nuggets in there. Thank you so much for sharing with our cohort on this side. I think everyone really appreciates the raw honesty with which you share, and also the insight that you've gained from your years of experience in terms of, you know, managing yourself, managing people, and just navigating the complex and difficult waters that is scaling up a business as a founder. So thank you so much for joining us. I must remember to give you more time when we do this again, because there's so much good stuff on there. But thanks for condensing it for us, and we wish you well on that side. Please do go rest now. Mike seems to have a few extra hours in his day compared to us mere mortals. So I want to learn more about how he does that. Thank you, Mike. Cool, guys. So this then brings us to our last panel for the day, which is the cash and finance panel. Can I ask my panelists to just jump on with me, please? Jacques, Lazan, Uwais. Guys, I'm excited to introduce you to our panel for finance. Jacques is one of the co-founders and directors at OCFO. Lazan is one of our most experienced chartered accountants in the team, and Uwais is our head of advisory. And I'm lucky enough to have all of them on the call with me today to take us into the home straight of this Scale-Up Con as we head towards the end. We're going to do one last panel on how to manage cash and finances during this scale-up journey. How are we doing, guys?
Very well, thanks.
Well,
great to having all of you. I want to kick us off with one big question, and I know you guys have seen a lot of this. So I first just want to ask, you know, what is the number one mistake that you guys have seen founders make in terms of managing cash and finances in this scale-up journey? Lazan, will you kick us off, please?
Sure. I think the number one mistake is not managing it in the first place, not keeping a close eye on it.
Yeah.
I think that either means that they don't actually have a cash flow forecast in place, or that it's not actually used frequently. And I think the way it can be avoided is to actually ensure that you have a cash flow forecast in place that is updated regularly. That you sit with your accountant who can highlight the red lights and also celebrate the wins, and to do it regularly. I would say at least weekly or monthly, depending on your working capital cycle.
Not managing the finances is Lazan's first one. I completely agree. Uwais, what can you add to that?
I think for me, it's probably running to overdrafts too quickly or running to loan finance too quickly instead of trying to fix their working capital cycle first. I mean, most of you will know that the interest charges on an overdraft can be up to 28%. And especially if your margins are quite low, that will eat into your profits. So first trying to rather look at your working capital cycle first before trying to look for funding or look for somebody to help me through this problem, I think is something that is a big mistake that entrepreneurs do.
Generating cash is a lot better than borrowing it, right?
Exactly.
Jacques, what can you add for us?
Yeah, I think the guys really hit it spot on, but I think to add to that is just being proactive about it. Lizanne also mentioned that just starting somewhere, planning, failing to plan is planning to fail. And just with that mindset, you have to start somewhere. I find that sometimes it's a very intimidating thing for entrepreneurs. Where do you start? How do you go about it? But just getting into it and being proactive and measuring it. If you can measure it, then you can manage it at least.
Thank you, guys. So with that, we're in full swing here. What you said about just about like incurring expensive debt at the moment, I think there's a massive push towards building profitable companies that can still scale in order to not take on external funding, more so now than ever before. I think for many, many years, there was this big craze of like, grow your company, grow your company, grow your company. And everything was thrown at the top line and the bottom line was completely neglected. And as a result, founders had to sell a lot of shares in the process to raise capital, or they had to incur big debts, which they have to repay. So now they either sit with a lot of expensive debt, or they sit with a very small portion of their company. Whereas I think the movement right now feels to me like it's very much towards like build for profit first and then keep scaling while you are profitable. Is a new kind of way of thinking. I think that's really emerging. So one of the really cool tools from Scale Up methodology that speaks to that is called the Power of One and the 7 Levers. So it's basically a tool that says that there's 7 different levers that owners of companies can pull to make that company more profitable and make it generate more cash flow. So the kind of the 4 elements that influence profitability is basically increased revenue by either increasing the amount of things you share or the price of the amount of things you sell, or the price of those things that you sell, or decreasing your cost of sales, your direct cost, or decreasing your operational expenses. Those are the 4 things, like increased top line, decrease costs. Those things create profitability within the company. And then you generate better cash flow by increasing your debtor cycle, slowing your creditor cycle, and increasing your inventory cycle to move product or services through faster. So those are kind of the core big elements of this Power of One tool. So Jacques, I'd like to ask you, the first 2 elements are really about increasing sales, right? So increasing volume or price. Like in this current environment, is that even possible for entrepreneurs right now? How do you go about that?
Yeah, I think to think, where does the sales come from to start with, and that's from your customers. So in that sense, what is the customer's needs? And I would say that the needs of customers definitely didn't decrease in this time. And if there's value behind what you are doing, there's definitely a place to grow that, because there would definitely be people that's in need of, customers in need of that product. So I guess having a client-focused mentality of saying, what is the customer's needs? And from there, if you can address and focus on the customer's needs, you're definitely going to be able to monetize that. So yeah, to start with being value-based, in terms of your pricing, if it's a services company, a lot of the times, instead of just selling hours, look at selling value, and the same with products, to look at, is everything you're selling really necessary and adding value to the clients? Because sometimes there's things that doesn't add value to clients, and in that sense, you can have more effective sales, if you like, just by focusing on selling what the client actually needs.
Right. So yeah, translating that core proper value proposition into new business is really what I'm hearing from you, Jacques. Thanks for that. Lizanne, over to you in terms of cost management, right? Cost cutting, I think, has been definitely something that a lot of companies have had to look at, maybe for the first time in their history in the last 6 months, where all of a sudden revenues dropped across many different industries when COVID hit, where some industries really could not trade in this time. What would you say are the best approaches to looking at making the machine a bit leaner in terms of direct and indirect costs?
Yeah, I think it depends on really what the situation is and how severe the situation is and the cost-cutting exercise that you need to go through. I think it's important to firstly look at the costs that you can actually control, to see which of those you can cut, and then basically to really look at every single cost that you have to see whether it's necessary, whether you can find a more cost-effective alternative, but without jeopardizing your quality. That's especially on your direct cost. So yeah, I think it's really going through every single cost and questioning every single one. I think if the situation is not as severe as what we've had recently with COVID, you really need to find that balance between, you know, looking at every single cost, of course, and your revenue. I heard this great story by Ramit Sethi recently. He wrote a book called I Will Teach You to Be a Millionaire. And he told the story about this woman who called him and said she's extremely frustrated because her husband keeps spending $3 every single day on iced tea. And that's, you know, she can make iced tea at home and he can save that. And when he pushed her a bit, she admitted that their total household income per year is $600,000. But she's worried about a $3 iced tea. So, you know, it's also the question about, you know, looking at what is material and is it worthwhile focusing on those small costs. But if it's something severe like COVID, yes, definitely, then I would say look at every single cost and focus on what you can control.
Iced tea makes me think of our coffee habits.
Yeah, for you it's coffee, for me it's tea.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Lizanne. That's great. So now Jock has helped us lift our top line revenue. Lizanne has helped us keep costs in check and maybe cut them a little bit. So now our profitability is intact. Now we want to generate better cash flow. Like, how can we increase the cash cycle? What are some of your best insights in terms of that?
The best insight that I can advise is structuring your cash cycle so that you get paid by your customer before you have to pay your supplier. And that might mean, that might mean collecting your revenue upfront or negotiating longer payment terms with your suppliers. You can't negotiate with your employees, but you still want to get your money from your customers upfront before you pay your employees. Maybe setting up debit orders with your customers. And the best place to do this is in that onboarding phase when you're getting a new customer, because that's where you, in your negotiating phase, you can get them to sign everything upfront. It's more difficult at the later stage to get a potential or a new customer to sign a debit order than upfront during the negotiations when you've got that sort of power. Also, only giving credit to customers who qualify for that, because that really relates to bigger problems at the later stage, and trying to manage your inventory a little bit more effectively using the different technologies that are available from an automation perspective also helps in terms of your cash cycle.
Okay. Anyone else also here that Duwys has done some work with clients in terms of how to maximize cash in the operational cycle of the business? I think so. Guys, I want to move over to one last concept that I want us to unpack, and that is basically like, what does the perfect finance function for a scale-up company look like? Surely there must be a model or a template that kind of that embodies the finance function for a company. Lizanne, if we were to think of the basic elements that every company needs to put in place as a starting point to creating a good finance function, what would you say the kind of the basics are of that building tower?
Yeah, I think the basics are definitely accurate accounting information, to make sure that everything is intact on the compliance side, and also to have good standing operating procedures in place. You know, when you have good information, you can make good decisions. So for me, an absolute basic is to have a good accounting package in place that gives you proper information, to from that extract monthly information like a balance sheet and a profit and loss that you can review, and also have a few, say your top 5 KPIs that you can review on a monthly basis or on a weekly, whatever your cycle is. On a compliance side, definitely having ensuring that you always have a tax clearance certificate, to tick the boxes with SARS and with SIP-C. And then on standing operating procedures, I would say it's much easier to have those SOPs in place when you're still a small entity and then to scale. It's more difficult when you suddenly grew too fast and then suddenly have to put these things into place. So definitely to put them in place and to communicate them to all the relevant parties. And I would say the ones to focus on is definitely on your vendor creation and procurement, the general expense authorization, payment authorizations, and if you have inventory, definitely inventory control.
Great. So yeah, you know, create scalable infrastructure for the company from the beginning. Don't try to first build a big company and then realize you don't have proper financial infrastructure. That leads to some of the disaster that unfortunately we come across some of the companies who have not put these baseline pillars in place, where compliance and basic information is not available, which makes all of the other things around scale-up methodology quite a bit harder. But let's imagine a company that has, you know, they've done the work, they've got the basics in place, you know, accounting information is freely available with the click of a button. There is good compliance and proper standard operating procedures. What would you say are the more advanced elements then that come into building a world-class finance function for a scale-up?
At this point in that client or in that business's journey, they've probably got a strategy. So that their budget and it needs to align with that strategy, because it needs to talk to that strategy, because that's how you're going to implement it. And at this level, cash flow forecasts are basic. It's basic, non-negotiable in my mind. Then you start doing things like tax planning, being efficient, having a forecast that maybe is 3 to 5 years. Also the 90-day plans that we mentioned in the previous sessions as well. And Lazan also mentioned setting KPIs. But what we could even do with those KPIs is linking those KPIs to employee incentives. That way you've got employees who are aligned in terms of they incentivize to get to this point, and that's where we want to go as well. Also having a certain level of scenario planning. What is a best case scenario, medium case, and a worst case scenario, so that we can be adaptable if things change, or if something like COVID happens. Maybe you wouldn't be able to predict that, but at least you have a worst case scenario that you could go to, and you won't have to figure it out at the very late stage. I think that's probably what I would recommend.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, thanks for that, Away. Sure, I think if you do work well in terms of really deep diving into the numbers, you know, the numbers will ultimately start telling you also where to next with the company, right? It'll tell you, you know, which customer segments or which geographical areas or which business units to focus on in terms of growth and profitability, and which ones to maybe not focus on so much. So I think ultimately we want finance and financial information to dictate the strategy of the company going forward, that we build a smart company in accordance with what the numbers are telling us. Jock, what else can you add to like what we would want to see in a perfect finance function that we haven't covered?
Yeah, maybe it's processes and people, like with any business function. So I think they discuss some of the processes that's so important, and then obviously a strong team. So whether it's a part-time team or a full-time team, it's super important to have a strong team, and then that processes, SOPs, from that you can automate. I think one thing would be also not to make things too complex. So to have a few KPIs that you can keep close by, and to quickly, easily see the performance of a business, that one isn't overwhelmed with all the information that is available, but art then goes back to and almost making it minimalistic, to have it 1 to 5 key figures that you can watch, that gives you, or ratios that gives you that insight. So after you have all that detail, how to slim it down into a one-pager again, or a quick dashboard that you can view.
I love it. That flows very nicely into, you know, identifying critical numbers we've spoken about earlier in today's session. So guys, thank you so much for that. We unfortunately also, we have a little power 20-minute panel interview. I really appreciate the insights all of you guys have shared, and that basically brings us to the end of our day. So thank you for the three of you for just being here with us and for sharing your experience.
Thanks,
guys, can I just can I grab that last slide, please, Michael? Great, guys. So this basically then concludes our Cape Town Scale Up Con. Listen to me, Cape Town Finance Conference coming up next. Look out for that in November. Our Scale Up Con, guys, this was the first time we've done it in this format. I'm really excited about about the turnout and about the brilliant shares that have come out today. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for giving it your energy, time, and attention. I think there's in every single session there was a couple of nuggets that I know I want to go reference again and look back on. We'll try and share this content in a best practical way as possible with all of you guys. And we'll make sure that the speakers' details are available afterwards as well. Do keep an eye out for an email post session that will share all of that. And also make sure that you bookmark the next OCFO webinar. I think we're going to be doing something that will unpack the kind of like the perfect finance function for a scale-up company in more detail. That we've kind of touched on a few elements now in the panel here. In the end, we really want to show you guys what we've learned from working with dozens and dozens of companies over the years, and you know, some of the practical tips and tools that you can apply in your company to build it for industry-leading profitability and cash flow, and to maximize valuation. Guys, I'm fired up. I think you know, we're ready for our next phase of the scale-up journey. I hope each one of you guys are as well, and we wish you well until we meet again. Hopefully in person very soon. We're crossing our fingers to see if we can get these events live and in person again soon. But until then, I think this works very well. It was incredible to have people from, you know, different continents and different time zones on the call. It's quite special. So thanks for being with us, and all the best on your journeys. We'll speak very soon.